Hello guys, this is Emma from MindMajix, and I welcome you all to this special session in which our trainer will explain everything you need to know about the OKTA. In this video, let us look at the topics we will cover. We shall start with the identity and access management in OKTA. Please check the caption to jump between the topics. If you are new to the MindMajix channel, please subscribe and press the bell icon to get quick updates about the new tech tutorials, free webinars, and career-enhancing shots from working professionals. Like and share the video with your friends and IT career aspirants. Without any further delay, let's start the video.
Hi everyone. Today we are going to cover what is identity and access management. So we are going to have an overview of what IAM is all about, the identity and access management domain. Why do we require IAM? What is the need of IAM? And we'll understand the basics of identity and access management before we jump on to our main product of IAM, that is Okta. So this particular domain, that is identity and access management, that has been segregated into two different categories. One is identity management and the other is access management, as the name suggests. So looking at the information what we have on the screen, right? So you could see that as an end user, whenever you join an organization, there is a requirement of doing identity management, as you have many downstream applications like your Active Directory, LDAP app, any other application like Workday, Salesforce, and you require to do a single sign-on to these particular application. So that's why that's where access management comes into existence, and that's why you require both identity management as well as access management in an organization, so that you give right level of access to the right people for the right purpose. So talking about the access management, it's basically supporting the authentication mechanisms, including single sign-on, multi-factor authentication, federation, and the password management. So anything on the single sign-on, that is like you can just log in once using your credentials, and then once the session is created with your browser, you don't have to log in again and again. That's your single sign-on. And then the other is multi-factor authentication, like just adding a layer of security on top of your first factor authentication. So you enter your credentials, and then you need to again authenticate yourself with one of the knowledge, like with one of the things, like something you have, something you possess, or something and then password management basically is the concept that you need to manage your passwords effectively. You don't have to you have to keep changing your passwords within the regular interval of time and stuff like that. So that's basically your access management, like mainly dealing with the authentication concepts. That's where the access management comes into existence. Then although, like I just mentioned, that IAM domain, that is identity and access management domain, it just comprises of identity and access management, but there are other domains as well. I mean, not domains, I would say, but other areas as well within this domain, where we require to work on. So one of them is access governance. So it's basically, the policy-based activities enabling the definition, enforcement, review, and auditing of IAM functions and policy compliance. So as as the name governance suggests, so basically it's going to govern whatever is happening inside the organization. So it's basically going to govern all the access that the users are going to have. So you as an IAM developer would be writing policies, and your system would actually be governing all the access based policies, or anything, whatever there is, whatever access is being given to the end users, that why do they require it, or what, like when do they require it again, for what purpose it was. So all of this reviewing and auditing of IAM functions is being done under access governance. Then comes the identity management. So it's basically, in simple words, if I have to explain, it's basically the life cycle of the user. So when a user joins an organization, maybe so that's called as a joiner. When the user moves within the organization, maybe the role of the user is changing from one designation to another designation, that's like a mover. And then finally the user leaves the organization, so that's like a lever. So basically, administering, or looking at all of these information, like when a user is joining or moving or leaving, that all comes under identity management. Then we have got privileged access management. So basically, privileged access management is somewhat like access management, but this time in this particular topic, we cover the privileged accounts which we have in an organization. So there could be a possibility that we have privileged accounts, like special accounts being created within an organization for special purposes. Generally, we call these accounts as service accounts, but and these accounts are like privileged with a lot of permissions. Like when we talk about our accounts or the other users' accounts, uh, generally in an organization, like if you're a normal user or an employee, your account is not loaded with a lot of privileges. You have simple privileges, you don't have admin rights and stuff like that. But when we talk about privileged accounts, like these shared accounts or service account, these are being loaded with high privileges. So these needs to be taken care at with a lot of we need to take care of these accounts, because anything which happens with these accounts could do a lot of data or a security breach for an organization. So that's why that's what this area of topic helps us to achieve. And then finally we have data security and analytics, and it's the ability to manage the unstructured data, providing the data classification, identification, and user analytics to support data security programs. So whatever data we are going to secure, right? So all of that data needs to be analyzed as well, and that's what comes under data security and analytics. Okay, so now we will like to understand why do we need IAM. Like we just gone through like what is identity and access management, but now we need to understand why do we need IAM. So identity and access management is a critical part of an enterprise security plan, as it is linked to the security and productivity of organization in today's digitally enabled economy. Compromised user credentials often serve as an entry point into organization's network and its information assets. Enterprises use identity management to safeguard their information assets against the rising threats of ransomware, criminal hacking, phishing, and other malware attacks. So, basically, like, to sum up these 2 points, I'm saying, like, I would say that basically the IAM is required to, it's a critical part for any organization. The reason being because, more and more we are going into this, into this IT world, we'll see that, more and more digitalization is happening. If you would have noticed, like, before COVID, also, like our country was doing very well in the digitalization, but like the dependency on digitalization has increased once this COVID has occurred, because like everyone is working from home, everyone, like more and more devices, more and more working on laptops, computers, mobiles and stuff like that. So we are kind of getting digitalized as we are progressing in our as we are progressing. So more and more we are getting digitalized, so there is a chance that more vulnerable we are towards cyber attacks or phishing or hacking and stuff like that, because more people are going to use the digital devices, and hackers are going to target those weak audiences who does not have the awareness or who does not have the knowledge to how to use the digital assets, or if the data is not being secured. So there is a high chance that that data is going to be breached by the hackers. So that's why we require IAM, because IAM is kind of ensuring that what level of access this should be given to what people, for what purpose, and at what time. So like once the acts, maybe we are working in a project and I have completed that project. Now I might not be requiring that access, but still if I have that access, I could do anything with that access, because now I've completed my project, so I'm not responsible for it. But still, if I'm having the access, I can go ahead and do anything, right? So that's where IAM comes into existence. It will just revoke my access once my project is completed, or if I have left the organization at that point of my at that point of time, my access is going to be revoked. So I don't have to worry that, I mean, like the organization doesn't have to worry that, okay, this access is there, or what will happen if this is not going to be removed and stuff like that. So that's why we require IAM. In many organizations, users sometimes have more access privileges than necessary. A robust IAM system can add an important layer of protection by ensuring a consistent application of user access rules and policies across an organization. So I just mentioned this point right now. So, like whenever we are working for an organization, right? So most of the organizations, they don't give, admin privileges to your system as well. Like, even if you have to install something on your device, on your laptops given by the company, you need to reach out to the IT team and they are, going to install stuff like that. So whatever, and the reason behind it is because like, they want to give minimum privilege to the end user, because if you have admin rights on your system, you have company's data on your laptop. Now you can install anything, go ahead and do anything with your with company's data. So that's why they kind of put that the policy on the laptop that okay, if you need access, or if you require an application to be installed, raise an IT ticket and then go ahead. But for certain organizations where we do not have this restriction, like an end user has anything, the admin privileges and stuff like that, so they can do anything on the system. I'm not saying that they will do it, but the thing is like everyone in the organization doesn't work ethically. So there are unethical people also who could take advantage of such situations, and that's where a system or a software is required, which actually helps you to make sure that even for the unethical people, data or data of an organization is not getting breached. Because like data for an organization, the data is the most important part. Like if data is getting breached and ransomware attacks and many other criminal in cyber attacks, whenever the data is breached, the organizations are ready to pay as much as the hacker or the other people want, the other side of the party wants. So that suggests like how much important the data for an organization is. So they cannot just simply compromise their data with the with not being implementing IAM in their organization. So that's why we require IAM. Identity and access management can enhance business productivity. The system central management capabilities can reduce the complexity and the cost of safeguarding user credentials and access. At the same time, identity management systems enable workers to be more productive in a variety of environment when they are working from home, the office, or on the road. So that's what, like when we are working from home, or when we are working from outside our office location. So that's where we need to make sure that because now we are not on the office VPN also, so there is no layer of network security which which can block data or allow, because if you are working on your own Wi-Fi, anything can happen. So at that point of time, we require IAM systems to be enabled, so that like there is a tracking activity or a governing activity going on, that what is happening on our systems, what the user is doing, is he doing something right or wrong. See, like this should be done only on the enterprise level, at the enterprise level, I mean, because like if you're doing something on your own laptop, that's fine, like you can do anything, but that you don't have your organization's data or anything else, so that's fine. But like if you're doing something on organization's laptop, or an organization's device, then it's kind of security or a data breach for an organization. That's where that should not happen, so that's where this IAM is required. Now the next thing is like how this IAM works. So in years past, a typical identity management comprised of four basic elements, which included a directory of the personal data of the system used to define the individual users, a set of tools for adding, modifying, and deleting that data, a system that regulates user access, and an auditing and a reporting system. So we, like in past, in like if I talk about like how the IAM used to work 15 years back, so it basically comprised of four different elements. One was that a directory, or you could say an Excel file, or anything like where the user information was stored. Then a set of tools for adding, modifying, or deleting those users. Maybe new users are getting added, so we need to add. Maybe some users are getting going, so we need to remove. A system that regulates the user access, maybe the enforcement of security policies and access privileges. And finally, an auditing and a reporting tool. So these four actually comprise of our IAM part. Regulating user access has traditionally involved a number of authentication methods for verifying the identity of a user, including password, digital certificates, token, and smart cards. Hardware tokens and credit card size, the smart card served as one component in two-factor authentication, which combines something something you have to verify your identity. So that's what, like regulating user access is very it was involved with a lot of authentication methods for verifying the identity of a user, which included our passwords or some certificates or maybe multi-factor authentication. And in today's complex compute environment, along with the heightened security threat, a strong username and a password doesn't cut it anymore. Today, identity management system often incorporates elements of biometrics, machine learning, and artificial intelligence and risk-based authentication. So basically, as in how, like right now we are progressing now. So as and how we are progressing, so like there is a more complexity coming into existence. So now in this complex environment we need to heighten the security threat. So just having a strong username and password doesn't suffice, because there are more efficient hackers now, like they are more intelligent now, to intellectual to actually crack your code or your password. So that's why it's more, now the identity management is often coming with some more complex way of getting you authenticated, that is through your biometrics, like because retina display or maybe fingerprints is something not easy to crack for an hacker, or maybe bringing in machine learning and artificial intelligence, or maybe risk based authentication. So all of this actually adds the layer of security on top of your username and password. So even like if your 1% your password is being compromised, so you still have other factors with you which will not allow the hacker to get into your account. So we need to make sure that these we are following these IAM standards at the user level. Recent user authentication methods are helping to better protect identities. So for example, the popularity of facial recognition and iPhones has familiarized many people with their fingerprints as an authentication method. Newer Windows or 10 computers offers fingerprint sensors or iris scanning for biometric user authentication. So now you would be seeing, right, like this facial recognition was actually the concept which came from Apple. And now you will see that in all the phones, in all the mobiles that are coming in the market, they have this facial recognition. And now even in the laptops you will see that you have the fingerprint scanner coming up in from Windows 10 and maybe in MacBooks, or somewhere they are also scanning your iris to get into your system to do the authentication. So that's how we are progressing. So that's how our IAM works. So yeah, like as I mentioned before, like what is identity management? It's basically the organizational process for identifying, authenticating, and authorizing individual or a group of people to have access to the application, systems, or networks by associating user rights and restriction with established identities. IDM is the task of controlling information about users on computers. Such information includes information that authenticates the identity of a user, and information that describes data and actions they are authorized to access and perform. It includes the management of descriptive information about the user and how and by whom that information can be accessed and modified. In addition to the users, managed entities typically include hardware and network resources and even application. So basically, it's just talking about that. It's basically the organizational process of identifying, authenticating, and authorizing. So these three are the terminologies in IAM market or in IAM world, which we often use. That is identifying, authenticating, and authorizing. So we need to understand what this identifying is. So basically, any user coming into the coming, or any employer or any end user coming into to access certain thing, we need to identify whether it's the right user or not. Like maybe you're trying to access something on the companies, like, and you have just entered your email right now, and you're maybe entering your Gmail ID. So at that point of time, it has to be identified that this is the wrong user ID we are using. Then authenticating, like by your username and password, or your multi-factor. And then finally authorizing that. Authorization is like what level of access you have. You may be getting into the system, but you are not a super admin, or you do not have admin privileges, or you have certain privileges according to your role defined in your organization. So basically, managing this efficiently, this identification, authentication, and authorization, all of that comes under identity management. So, if I have to just sum up what is identity management, so it's basically like, you as an employee, you join an organization, The HR enters your details in the employee details, and finally that goes into the Active Directory. Active Directory is your application over here. So, all of this has to be managed efficiently. Like, there could not be individuals, setting in to add your data when you're joining. If you're moving, then, you again have to do it manually. Then, like go to the Active Directory manually. All of this process has to be automated, and automation of whole of this process is known as identity management. I have got certain more diagrams to show you that, like if there is a system, there is a person in an organization, all of these are grouped under as entities. Then, there are different identities. So these identities actually correspond to these entities, which would be a system, person, or organization. And, these identities are going to have different names and attributes. So, these attributes and names are actually going to help you understand, like, who is the exact user trying to access what. So yeah, that's what, like, well, last topic for the day is, like, just to understand the main concepts of IAM. So first of the, terminologies which we have under IAM are centralized access management. So basically, handling user authentication and account management at a central system. So, simple example is like, you have got AC in your home, and then you have got a centralized AC in your office. So that's exactly the same thing. If you're doing it for a smaller thing, it's just access management. But if you're, if you centrally want to manage it for the whole organization, so that's a centralized access management. User provisioning. Now, whenever you'll hear this word provisioning, just try to remember that it's, creation or, managing the user. So that's sort like just the whenever it could be user provisioning, account provisioning, application provisioning, data provisioning, sorry, identity provisioning. So whatever you find, with the word provisioning, just remember that, it's creating and managing. So like all, or just remember it's the creation. So whenever something is getting created or added, that's your provisioning. So basically creating and managing user accounts or identity information within the system. Then single sign-on, I just mentioned when we started this session, it's basically, authenticating the users one and allowing them to access to the multiple applications. So, you don't have to log in again and again. You just have to, remember your one password and credentials. And with those username and password, you'll be able to, enter or access all the applications which have been integrated through SSO. And then multi-factor authentication is again, adding a layer of security on top of your main security layer. So that could be a password, SMS, fingerprint, anything. Adaptive authentication is something, authenticating users by challenging with multiple authentication steps based on the user's risk profile. So basically, if it's a high risk profile, like, if there is a profile which is having high risk, so at every point, maybe a user is being authenticated, like, they'll have to prove their identity again and again. If it's a low risk profile, they might not be asked to, authenticate again and again. They might be just asked to authenticate once, and then, they can access. So high risk profiles are going to definitely have high risk roles tagged to them, and that's why they require to, authenticate again and again. And that's what this adaptive authentication is all about. Identity federation is authentication users existing in an external identity provider. So we are going to, discuss this topic of federation later on. But just think, like, whenever we'll have an external IDP or, some other organization coming into existence, that's where, the federation concept will always come into existence. And then we'll have this reporting, that is IAM systems provide reports that helps organizations prove compliance with the regulations, identify potential security risk, and improve their IAM and security processes. So basically the, analytics and data, whatever the IAM comes up with, we need to report them and analyze them. And that's what, that helps us to efficiently improve our IAM and security process. So yeah, so that's what the IAM is all about. Like, just an overview of what IAM, identity and access management is. So yeah, that's it for today. Thank you everyone. Have a good one. Take care. Bye-bye.